Hello guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and today we have got the start of yet another build. This is the Border Models JU87. Because I've been sent this kit from Border Model, I feel that, I've done the review and everything, and I feel that I should actually, at least do a build of it. If I don't do all the super detailing and painting and all that, just build it, see how it goes together, and then I can give them some feedback on any errors I find with part numbers in the instructions or whatever. So, it's just like I feel that's something I should do. I'm filming this after I've made the video as a kind of apology because I can't go back and change it, because I know there are people out there who want to get on the keyboards and blah 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 and write this, that and the other and call me the biggest bastard under the sun. What's basically happened, I've made a schoolboy error. I've had the camera too close to the bench, zoomed in close to the work, lost my depth of field, and in a couple of areas where I'm working in front of the camera you will see the parts look slightly blurred because I've got the camera too close basically, and it's focusing on if my finger's holding a knife or the glue or something, then it's focused on my, sorry, not glue, cement. I got told off for calling it glue. Yeah, so basically it's focusing on my fingers, so basically you can't actually see what I'm doing. You know what I'm doing because I'm explaining what I'm doing, but you can't really see what I'm doing. So sorry about that. There's nothing to do about it now. The video is made, the parts are assembled, the parts are built. I can't take them apart again. I don't have another kit, so so that is what it is. I know in future, keep the camera higher up and zoom in and increase the depth of field so that it's able to focus over a wider range of focal distance. So there we go. Hope you enjoy it. It certainly appears to be a lovely kit. I love the Border Models plastic, as I keep saying, but enjoy. It's over an hour long. Hi everybody, Nigel here with you. So this is the Border 1/35th scale Junkers JU87 G1 G2 Stuka from Border Models. Kit number is BF002. As you know, they sent me this free of charge. Very nice of them. I've done the review of the kit, we've had a good look through the instructions, so now we're going to see how it goes together. So first thing we have to do is look in the box, and you can see you've got the lovely glossy instructions, but if you remember, as I said before, we've got no colour callouts in the instructions. So I've gone on Scalemates and I've printed out the instructions for the Hasegawa kit, which has colour callouts throughout, so that's pretty good. The only trouble is the Hasegawa kit doesn't seem to have any engine detail. But for those of you that don't know, the G was made from the D. So the D version is good for all interior colours and stuff like that. The G was actually a converted D, both the 1 and the 2. I'm doing this as a sort of after recording, because I didn't realise I recorded this and I had the radio on in the background, so it sounded bloody awful. So the kit is absolutely lovely, as you can see. Everything here is bagged up now because I've bagged it all up. When I originally got it, it wasn't. It's a pre-production sample. So anyway, let's get some parts off the sprues and see how it all goes together. Let's have a look. Right, so in the first page of the manual, we've basically got the engine construction, and then we go over the page, we're into actually fitting the engine. So this is all the engine construction with the filters and everything down here, or the this is the oil cooler and intercooler, I believe. So basically down here, yeah, because the water coolers are under the wings, and one of the big problems is they throw up mud into the water coolers, radiators, and they overheat. So this must be the oil cooler and intercooler down here. Anyway, what is nice about this kit, they've got everything on one sprue by the look of it. So we're going all the way through, and it looks like everything is on D sprue. Until we get to the bulkhead, there's some different parts down there, but that's a different assembly. The actual engine itself, everything's on the D sprue, which is a nice touch. I'm currently working on a men kit, and it is just all over the place. You've got like A1, B17, C28, D47 in one assembly. It's just a pain. When they do this, it's really nice. This is something Airfix have done a lot lately as well, which is really good. It means you can just get a sprue out of the box, put the box to one side, and work away on your bench rather than forever trying to find the bloody things. But one of the nice things about Border Model, they do this with the pierced labelling on the sprue rather than just having it in, engraved or moulded in. Makes it very easy to see. This piece of tape here is holding the end of this engine mounting, which has been snapped off on my kit. It's only snapped off because the bags weren't, the parts weren't bagged. This is a pre-production sample, remember, so if we find any short shots or anything like that, I'm not going to worry about it. It's a pre-production sample, so I'm kind of expecting issues, if you like. Now, I have quickly gone through the instructions, found a couple of small errors. Any errors I do find going through, I will mark them down and I will make you aware of them so that you know going forward with your build. And also, then when Border Model watch this, they can see and perhaps make some changes to their printing. But may be too late for that, I don't know. This manual looks kind of complete. So I'm guessing that it's not a test shot. We're kind of into pre-production territory here. So anyway, let's get this. Let's get some parts off, get them cleaned up, and get them glued together. So parts are off the sprue. Now these are the major parts for assembling the engine. Now something I must be careful to do so that I can tell you guys if there's an error. It's a bit like their D26, D29. Very difficult to see on the sprue which is which. So if there is an error there, I can cut them off. I'll cut off D26, make sure it is that one. If it actually turns out that it's that one, I can let you know and change the instructions. And just before I do carry on, I'm making notes about the instructions and error in the instructions. This is Border Model's what? 6th, 8th kit? I know it's their second aircraft. You know, companies like Dragon, who a lot of people swear by, wouldn't ever buy anything else, their instructions are absolutely bloody awful, and they've been going for years. So little errors like this I'm not going to worry about. One of the big issues, like with Trumpeter, with Dragon, particularly Dragon, and a lot of other companies, you'll be going along, you're building away, and all of a sudden, it's like you'll see that these two bits here have appeared. They're there, and yet they weren't there back here. And that's one of the things you've got to be very careful of, because in some instances you'll miss that out, and then when you get to here you can't fit them because you can't get in there to fit them. So things like that are a big problem. Companies like Tamiya, pretty much Airfix, pretty much Revell, instructions are great. But I think a lot of the newer companies, I don't know how they're making them, who does them, how they do them, but they do seem to have some errors in them. But you know, it's not a big problem if you're not going by. You know, it's like pretty obvious. This is here. I've got D41 and D42 are mixed up. You know, if you can't tell the difference between those two parts, then I think you've got more of a problem than a beginner. So, you know, little things like this, we're not going to worry about, but I am just making notes like this so you can see what's wrong. So, let's get this together. So we've got the two engine halves. We've got the two engine halves going together, and then we've got the front and the rear, whichever's the front and the rear. And then we're going to put this valley in between. So I'm going to put the two engine halves together, put these ends on and put the valley in between and get it all together. And then if I have to clamp it or whatever, I can just leave it and let it dry. We'll see how it goes together. I haven't actually physically dry fitted it yet. You can see I've still got a sprue nib on there. I'm using my Infini sanding sticks, which are amazing. This is the Matador type, fairly hard. This plastic is an absolute dream to work with. It is wonderful stuff. And bear in mind, nothing I say here is just based on the fact this kit was given to me by Border Model. I said it all along with their 109 that I actually paid for. This plastic is just such a dream to work with. It's very similar to ICM plastic. It glues together beautifully. It's just wonderful stuff. So let's just get these two engine halves together and hold them in roughly the right place. I'm going to use extra thin. I'm not going to use the quick setting because I want to have some time to play with this, so I can move it around and get the ends in. So that's the lower the thinner end of the V, should I say. It's the top of the engine in this application, but in normal applications the engine would be the other way up. So this end cover goes on, and this sort of goes on to the end. By the look of it, yes it does. I've got a bit of a sprue nib there. Nope, it's just some dust from where I've sanded the sprue nib off. Very nice sprue nibs on here, nice and small. Very easy to cut. So I'm just going to put a little tiny dab of cement on either side of that just to hold it there, because I don't want to lock it in place yet, just in case. And then this rear piece, that's going in. No, that's going to go up and underneath. So that's another good reason for having the glue still soft on the bottom so you can pry it open. Got some ejector pin marks on there. I'm not going to worry about them because they really are not going to be seen. They're going to be hidden by all the supercharger gear and everything, or turbocharger, whatever you want to call it. It is actually a supercharger because it's driven by the crankshaft rather than by exhaust gases. So there we go. And just give that a bit of a squeeze together. Let's put that glue off of there. And there we go. So that's the engine together, just like that. So we'll see how this valley fits in here. Wow. Very nice indeed. So, little tiny gap at the front there. But I mean, it's literally a couple of thou, it's nothing at all. But the fit along the top here and everything is wonderful. You can see how, I'll show you a close-up in a minute. You can see how wonderfully it's fitting all along here on the valley. Around this rear cover. I mean, the step on there is just negligible. It's going to be covered by the cam covers anyway, or the rocker covers, should I say. And comparing this to some of the 30-second scale stuff out there, it is very, very nice indeed. Now, as you can see on here at the front, on the front of the engine there is a tiny gap where this valley is meeting the front cover. I need to put some glue around this front cover because I didn't do that before. Just make sure that gets glued on. There we go. So yeah, I mean, there's no fitting, no fettling, no. All I've done is remove sprue nibs and quickly sanded the edges. Nothing more than you would do on a Tamiya kit or whatever. So then the sump's going to go on here. And that's fitting beautifully. Now the sump has got, be careful not to just come along and start sanding, because the sump has actually got raised bolts, bolt heads or whatever along there. So they're going to show as the engine goes in, like so. Now, probably the best way to do this is to brush some cement down there, and then brush some cement down there, drop across the end, drop across the back, give it a squeeze, and there we are. You don't want to glue as an over because it's depicting, the side that's up now is part of the engine block, and then the bottom part is the sump or engine cover or whatever. But really, really happy that that's gone together. It's lovely. Very, very nice indeed. Very, very nice indeed. Just give you a close-up of that, how it all looks. Really is lovely. And then we've got this oil reservoir, whatever it is, to go on. So that's going to go on like that. So what I'm going to do is just get a bit of extra thin into there, drop into there, and then plonk that on. No, put it down the wrong way. Plonk that on there. There we go. It's that glued in place. Alright, so I don't think it needs any clamping or anything. Seems to be absolutely fine. There we are. Okay, so got these two parts off here. They are correct in the instructions. I think they're the conduit for the ignition leads. They basically go into the magnetos on this end. So yeah, they're good. Get that out of the way. So they're good. D26, D29 are correct. Lots of sprue connection points on them. You can see where they came from here, the sprue connection points. So yeah, it's a bad thing because there's a lot of cleanup. You've got 5 sprue nibs on each one, but I'm sure we've all seen it, like especially with Italeri kits, where you've only got like 1 or 2, and then you find there is an extremely weak point in between. So I'm not going to worry about the fact that you've got all those connection points on there. If you've got a nice pair of cutters, it makes them no problem at all to remove, and then just clean up the little bits of sprue nib, rather than have because obviously the plastic flows into the sprue along here and then down these gates. So the more gates you've got, the less distance the plastic has to travel between the gates, and therefore when it actually meets up in the cavity in the mould, it's still hot. If you only had one here and one here, the plastic would rush down here, and then along from each end on the cavity, and by the time it meets in the middle, you get what's called a cold front, and the two sort of walls of plastic come together, and they're hot. They're not hot enough to sort of meld into each other. They just bump and just stick together, and it forms a very weak joint. I'm sure you've all seen it. Anyway, that's enough waffling from me. People do tell me in my videos I talk too much. If you think I talk too much, you have two options. Well, you have three options. 1, don't watch the videos. 2, fast forward. 3, turn the volume down. There you go. So a lot of people say they love my in-depth discussion, in-depth explanations. So I'm going to carry on the way I am, rather than change to satisfy just a couple of people who want to have a moan. So I guess some people need to have a moan. I mean, I'm the same. We all love a good rant now and again, don't we? What I'm doing here, I wouldn't normally do this. I wouldn't normally use super glue. But I'm just putting some super glue into these joints just to fill them in, because there is a tiny gap there, and it doesn't matter one iota. If you're building this model and you don't want to fill these, it doesn't matter one iota, because we've got a cover going onto the back of the engine, but I fear that these edges may be seen. Right, so done the super glue, done some sanding, and as you can see now everything's all nice and lovely. There were just a couple of tiny gaps down here and a tiny gap on there. Bearing in mind the engine's going to be sat in the aircraft this way up, and you're going to look down on it from this angle if you leave the cover open. None of that is going to be seen anyway, so I've just done it because I could, and that's why I use super glue. I wouldn't normally use super glue because it's always harder than the plastic, and I always worry about losing some detail or losing the shape, but because it was just a flat face and this was just a radius, I just thought, just for speed rather than use Mr. Surfacer. And also on these faces here, what I've done, I went round just with a black pen, just made a couple of marks on the different sides. Here you go, like that. And then you can come along with a flat, hard sanding stick, something flat, don't use a sponge, and just lightly sand over there, just letting the sanding stick do the work. You're not trying to remove tons of material. All you want to do is make sure it's flat and level. And there you go, you can see we've got a tiny little bit of pen left there. So we just keep sanding, and there we go, it's all gone. And you can see on there now, we've got a nice flat face for our rocker cover to go on to. So we're going to fit these now. So we've got D26 and D29. They're going like this, and they have it's going to be very difficult to show you, I think. On there are 2 large pins, and then there are 6 smaller pins, and the 6 smaller pins denote where the cables come out, I'm guessing. And there was 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 of them, sorry. So this one will be D29, because those pins with the engine this way up and this way around point downwards. So those points point downwards, and those here at the end point downwards as well. So it needs to go that way around. We can see in the instructions that this one is actually D29 because it's that side. If I put it this side, the end piece would be pointing upwards. So I'm just going to literally get the engine the right way around. Here we go, like that. Drop that into there. Let's get my tweezers. So we can drop that into those holes like so. So that's gone in like that. Now it doesn't quite want to go in those holes, so I'm just going to give those holes a tiny little open up. Seems a lot of these kit manufacturers now, they seem to make things sort of size for size. That HK 148 Lancaster is a complete and utter nightmare for putting. Let's do the other side, let's see how that one goes together. That 148th Lancaster is a complete and utter nightmare for putting together. Everything is tight. It's a real pain. You see, that one's just dropped straight in. So it's probably me old fumble fingers rather than the parts themselves. I'm just going to put some glue. It's contacting where all the cylinders rise. So you can see that's glued in there now, just like so. So there we go, and I'll get the other side now. I think the tweezers probably help. And drop that one in there. Wrong way round, Nige. Duh. There we go, that's gone in. I think there was just a little tiny bit of flashing on those holes because literally, as you saw, I just touched it with a knife. I didn't even go with a drill, and they've opened up. So we come in now with some glue on there just to get them to go down in. And I'm going to use the end of one of my PE sanders just to nudge it in like so. Get it all in nice and tight. And there we are. So that's those bits done. So that's the first 2 steps done. Let's look at getting these engine bearers on. I think actually what I might do is move on to here, and then we can paint the engine black without the engine bearers on. We can paint them separate. Right, I've zoomed you in a bit so it's a bit closer so you can see more what's going on. So what we're going to do now is this complicated little bit here, which is the supercharger area around the back of the engine. Lots of bits of greeblies, and looks like there's an oil filler there and some sort of coil pack perhaps, I don't know, and there's all sorts of bits and pieces going on. So we'll get all this together now and see what happens. So first we've got the 2 halves of the main support piece here. So they're going to get glued together so they fit together like so, and they fit together lovely, so that's good. In fact, I'll use some quick setting on here for nothing other than speed. So just brush some quick setting around there, brush them down there, into there, all the way around, let it capillary in. Okay, and then just give them a pinch, and that's them together. Right. And I think what I might do actually is let that dry and just give that seam a quick clean up, because I think that's going to be quite pronounced on the model. So back in a minute. Right, so literally a few minutes later I've managed to sand that down, that seam, get that a lot nicer. So right, we'll start from the top and work down. I think so. We've got this part here which is D12. I'm not exactly sure what these parts are, guys, but that's going to go on there. Okay, so we've got a little lug on the back of there, you can see. So we'll just put some glue under there and let that get itself bitten in. And the other thing I'm going to do is over the end here we've got detail. I can use the extra thin just to brush over and remove any seam lines. So there we go. So make sure you don't get the wrong way up. You've got the, if it is an oil filler, you've got a pip on the centre on the top, whereas the actual peg that fits it to the model is off centre. So that's that nice and square. Then we've got D16, which looks like a pulley, but I'm sure it's not. That's going to go into the slot down below there, and that is off centre, so I'm going to put some glue into that slot and then just push that into there. There we go, guys. If you can't tell in my voice, I've got a bloody cold again. I've got a review of a kit to do from HPH, and I don't want to do it while I'm like this because I keep having to keep stopping to cough, and I want it to be one of the best reviews I've ever done. So that's got to hang on for a little while. But basically, yeah. Right, so next part we've got is D18. So that's got 2 pins on it. Make sure we get the right way round. If we look at this part, one side's got some detail on it, one side's just plain. The plain side is going off to the left as we see it here, so I can push that into there. That fits lovely, just like so, and then we'll just brush some extra thin into there, let it get into the seam. There we go, that's that in. And then we've got D13, this bit here going in the side. So that looks like that's going to go over that little semicircular lug there. And slot in like so. So there we go, that's going to go into there, that's going to go into there. Oh, come on. Please do play one's game. So that's that. You've also got in the instructions, you've got the next diagram there with the actual built-up assembly to look at. So there we go, and again with the extra thin we can come around here and just clean up any seam lines or anything. And then across the bottom here we have, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump ahead. Next part of the operation is saying to fit D27 into here. I'm going to do that now so that it's easier to put in before I put these parts down here in. So D27 is over here, and that's got like a little cranked end on it, and that cranked end is going off to the right. So that's going to go in like that. This is getting very fiddly now. Many parts to make up this little area. It's going to look amazing when it's painted and dry brushed. So that's that there. And then we've got these two units down here. I'm guessing these are like starter motors or something, I don't know. Or filters of some sort. Just going to get a brush of glue in around that one. And then we'll get that one glued in there. And we'll get a brush load of glue in there. Oops, not supposed to drop it. There we go, let the glue do the work. Get it all welded together. And then we can come along with the extra thin and just gently brush over the areas. Just like so. And that cleans up where we've originally sanded off any mould seams or anything, that cleans them up. So there we go, that's that. And then we've got, moving on to the next part, we've got D17, which looks like it's going in the back. So this is just like a round thing, whatever it may be. So that's just popping in there. Drop a glue, just like so. And then we've got the actual supercharger itself. We've got two halves here going together. And they look as though they fit together lovely, don't they? Yes, they do. Yep, so I'm going to put some extra thin quick setting in there. Give that a little squeeze. And then brush some over this side. Give that a little squeeze. That should all hold together. Just like so. Okay, and now I'm going to leave that to dry so I can sand the seam, but you can see the seam is next to nothing, there's nothing there. So there we go, so I'm going to leave that to dry and then we can sand that seam off and then we'll get it fitted on. So now we can look at getting all these parts off here. They go into the top of the engine and then we can put the cam covers on. Rocker covers, not cam covers. Right, so cleaned up the supercharger. That's all nice and clean, the seam on there now, so that's all looking lovely. So we can bolt this on now, or glue it on should I say. And this is basically going to go onto the side of here, like so, in that peg there. So that's going to go on like that. Okay, so we'll get some extra thin quick setting and just brush that into there. And then let that do its work. There we go, so there's the supercharger on there. We've got the pipe coming out there to the intercooler. So there we can see that is the actual assembly going onto the back of the engine. You can see it's very complicated, and it's going to look lovely with a dry brush. So There we go, that's that. Now I want to make sure that we get this part here D50. Sorry you can't see what I do. This part here D50 is the top of the intercooler, and I'm going to get that off the sprue so that I can make sure that when we get all this on here it all aligns, because we've got that pipe there and we've got this pipe here, and they're going to have to align when it all goes together. So let's have a look at this. So we've gone on there, we've got all these bits and pieces now going on the top of the engine. So the first thing I'm going to do, and we need to look at this carefully, I would suggest fitting these three pieces here first, and then that last, so it's going to make it easier to get in. So we've got our engine this way round, that way up, okay. So at the front we've got D20, which is this part here. So hopefully that'll just drop into those holes without any cleanup required. There we go, straight down in. So just a drop of glue in there, drop on the back. And then we've got D24, which is this, we've got this part here with the part there with the big leg on the bottom. So that one's going to go into that slot. So this has been engineered so that you can't really do it wrong. So that's very nicely done. Thank you, Border Model. So that's going to go in there. And then we've got D22, which is the one with the pegs on, and it looks like the leg sticks out of the rear. As you can see, this is the leg, the pegs are off center. So you've got more shaft on this side than you have on this side. And looking at the instructions, it looks like that goes that way round. So that's going to drop in there. Again, straight in, no issues. Just like so. Just nudge that into the center. And there we are. So that's that in there, that's lovely. Now the supercharger bit goes on the back of the engine, but it appears to not have any location. Okay, it appears to have no location, but it does. It's absolutely brilliant. You've got this little semicircle here locating into the valley, and then you've got these flats here locating under there. So it actually sits in there really nicely. So I'm just going to sit that in there and push it up. I think before I do that, I'm just going to give this bottom end a quick, or top end should I say, quick clean up just to get rid of that seam. If we need to do any seam clean up afterwards, I think we can. So that's going to go in there like so. Make sure it's all square. I'm going to use my ordinary extra thin so I've got some time to play with it and move it around. Just get some glue in there, let it capillary up into the join, and then just get it all centralised. Make sure everything's nice and square. Wow, I'm liking this a lot. This is very nice indeed. So I'm just going to push that down. Lots and lots of detail on the back of this engine. Okay, so that's that, and then this pipe here is going to sit in the valley. You can see down in the valley there's two little cutouts, and then this pipe is going to sit in, but I've got a feeling that sits in there beautifully, but I've got this pipe on the front. I've got a feeling that may stop us putting this piece in. This piece here, going to go on the top into those two holes. Again, that fits beautifully, so what I'm going to do is put some glue on here and then drop that in. Just put some in the back there. And then this is going to sit, this is two parts here. I've already put it together and cleaned up the join. That's going to sit down that valley, so I can put a drop of glue down in the valley there. And then just drop that in. And there's two pegs on the bottom there that sit in two little cutouts. And that's it, and that's our intake manifold then. So I'm going to put plenty of cement down in there. So now what's going to happen here, this is the intercooler and oil cooler. Now that's going to line up, that pipe there has got to line up. So you can see we've got the big hole there where this pipe here is going to go. We've got the peg on the side here that's going into there, and we've got the pin there that's going to that part. So we've basically got 3 pipes here which all have to line up and remain square so that all this is going to fit nicely into the fuselage. So we're going to look at that there, and we can see we've got a twist on it, and this hasn't really cured off enough yet for me to be playing with it. But okay, so we want to make sure it's all nice and square, because that is going to be our location for our intercooler oil cooler, if it is an oil cooler, down here. And then when we come to actually fit it in the fuselage, or fit it into here, that's going to be what holds it in place. So we need to make sure that everything is square. Now that pipe there is holding it over, so I'm going to give it a little twist. It's this pipe here that gives you the adjustment. And also there's a hose on there that joins into there, so we'll get that glued in as well. So as you can see, looking at it from above, it's not square. So I'm just going to twist it until it is square. There we go. And I'm really liking this because, and I'm not just saying this because it's border model and they sent me the kit and it's the first one and all that. As you know, I am always honest. What I'm liking about this is it's true to scale. That is the top of the intercooler. This is the supercharger, and that is the inlet manifold. So we haven't got any plastic lumps or anything holding this and big pegs to make sure it goes in square. It is as the real thing. So if you wanted to display this with everything open, that is actually how it's going to hang off of there. It's hanging on those pipes. So, you know, it's really, really nice that they've done it like this. It just means you've got to be a bit forward thinking, as I am being unusually, but just be a bit forward thinking with your build, because if you don't get that to line up with those holes now, it's going to be an issue going forward. Once it's all dried and painted and dry brushed, oh no, it don't fit, start moving that pipe around, it breaks off, you mess your paint up. So it's best to be a bit forward thinking now and just go for it like that boat. But basically what I'm trying to do is, when I look down on it as you are now, I want that to be square, this to be perpendicular to the centre line of the engine. There we go. Obviously we'll be able to tweak it a little bit because it's plastic, but of course we'll be able to tweak it once it's dry. But as far as actually physically, you know, really pulling it about, that's as far as I'm going to go. So we'll leave that to go off for a little while, and then we'll look at getting our cam covers and everything on. Engine doesn't want to stand up. Let's put there we go. So let's leave it at that for a while, let that go off, and then we'll start looking at getting the rocker covers on, and maybe doing some start on the work on the bulkhead. Right, so we've got our rocker covers off. I've marked them up on the inside just in case they're wrongly numbered in the instructions. I don't think they are. So that's that can just come off of there now. We can take that off, put that to one side. So we'll get our engine. Now this one's number 39, and our instructions are saying 44 for this side, 39 in brackets for the other. So this one should fit on this side. So let's just check. And yes, it does. So it's central and everything. Let's just see if that one actually fits on this side. Maybe it's off to one side slightly, so I'm not really too sure. But anyway, that's gone on there. Get some extra thin. Just run that into the joint. It doesn't need to be mega welded on because it's just sat there for the ride, really. Okay, and then the other one, number 44. Wrong way round, Nudge. Get that one on there. Just get some glue into the joints. Here we go, that'll do us. Like I say, As long as the seam's good, there's no gaps. There just needs to be kind of tacked on, or it doesn't need to be welded on or anything. Now on the side here we've got the heat shields for the exhausts. Now they go, they're basically heat shields to keep the heat from the engine, from the exhaust away from the engine bay. So the heat is basically coming out of the exhaust into the manifolds, and it's not soaking back into the engine bay. So it's kind of sealing out. They would generally, I think, be painted aluminium, or even the colour of the fuselage. So I'm going to leave those off and paint them aluminium and have them looking a little bit different. I'm also obviously leaving the engine mounts off because they're going to be RLMO2. I have actually fitted the spindle on the front, as you can see, which is pegged. It only goes in one way. But there we go. There's our engine pretty much done, and it's very nice indeed, with some lovely detail, and it's going to look beautiful. As I say, we'll get it painted black in part 2 and give it a dry brush and see how it looks. Basically, there we are. Right, so just going to fit this intercooler top plate. Just check that's all square again, check it's all central. You can look down from the front there and we can see that the plate is equal about on the rocker covers. So happy with how that is. That's all going to go lovely. So we can put that aside to dry. And now we can have a look at these parts here. Now we're going to look at assembling our bulkhead. You can see we've got lots of greeblies going on here. The only two parts I'm concerned about, C18 and 19, they look exactly the same. They look like two fuel filters, but I'm keeping them 18, 19 apart like that. As you can see, the colour of the plastic is different, and it feels slightly different to work with. Now, whether that's a placebo effect, I don't know, but it feels harder. It's not as nice as that. It's not horrible. It's just it looks kind of more like Revell plastic. I don't know, maybe slightly darker. I don't know. Maybe this is their test shop plastic, but it's absolutely fine, and it sands beautifully. It feels slightly harder, and it does actually feel harder than that. So whether they've used this because they've got some thin, fine parts, I don't know. But it's just a lighter colour plastic. Of course, you've got the fine riveting on there as well. So maybe they want it harder so that the riveting's more stronger, shall we say. Right. So going on here. The instructions say C20 for the bulkhead. It's clearly not, it's C41. This part here, the little oil tank there, is C20. So I assume that should have had an arrow going down to there, or maybe C20 should have been closer, but anyway, not the end of the world. It's nothing much at all. So basically we'll start from the top again. So we've got a little oil cooler there, and we've got a little oil tank, should I say. We've got a little filler on the top there. It may be oil, it may be nitrous or something, I don't know. So I'm just going to pop that in there and then put some glue into the holes from behind. So that's that glued in place. And then we've got C15. C15 is this one. This looks like some sort of throttle linkage. And they've got the holes. You can see the holes in here. Big on one side, small on the other, so you can't get it in wrong. So this is all very nice, very highly detailed. Now accuracy, I don't know. I'm building this as a plastic kit and seeing how well it goes together. I'm not talking about dimensions, overall shapes and stuff like that. Now we've got on the side here, we've got C25, so that's just the plain one there. So again, that's got two pegs the same size, so they're just going to drop in there and they fit in with no issues whatsoever. So I can hold that in place, put the glue in from behind. There we go. Again, that goes in one way. It doesn't look equilateral to me. Let me have a look under the magnifier. Yes, it is. There we go. So that's gone in there like that. And then we've got C37 on the bottom, because you always want a C37 on your bottom, eh? That's going to go in like that, and then we can hold that in place and drop the glue in from behind, just like so. And there we are. It looks like we've got some sort of linkage, you know, arms and levers for stuff for mixture enrichment and throttle and everything. And then we've got this part here, C5, which is some kind of intake. That's going to go into the bottom there. Looks like it's some kind of intake. It might be a mounting for something, but it sits there. Drop a glue in there, drop a glue in there. Job done. And now it's tacked in place, I can come in and just get some glue, make sure it's not going to be falling off everywhere. There we are. And then the next bit is these two, what look to me like fuel filters. They are lovely. So they're going to go one in there like that. Is it going to fit in the slot? Yes. I must say, other than those conduits for the ignition leads, everything is fitted together beautifully. And then this one here, these fuel filters, they look exactly the same, but because they were numbered 18 and 19 rather than two 18s, I was sort of conscious about keeping them separate, just in case, you never know. And there we go there. Okay, so that's our bulkhead done. So you can see there's the assembly, putting the bits and pieces together, and then we end up with our bulkhead there, looking lovely. You can see when the engine goes on, it's all going to look very nice indeed. All that detail together, so it would be a shame to close it all up. I may leave one of the engine covers loose. Just put that back square. There we are. Okay, so get our intercooler together. Very nice touch here. Notice border model put their sprue connection onto this face rather than onto the side, and that way you're not sanding away at that radius when you take the sprue connection off. Thank you, border model. So we're going to put these two halves. In fact, no, we're going to put this in first. We've got this piece at the back here, D28 is going to go in. So that's just going to sit in the back of there. Quick drop of extra thin just to hold that in there. There we go. And then we're going to glue the top on. And the fit here is lovely. I've already had a look. So we've got a seam round there. We've got a seam down there. And we've got a seam down there. As you can see, we can manipulate it, get it all pulled about, get those grooves to line up. We've got nothing to worry about. No one's ever going to see this anyway because it's going to be covered up by the lower scoop unless you're going to have those covers removed. There we are. I'll just get some glue into here just to lock that piece in part, make sure it's sat back in. And then we've got the front grille here, part D7 going on. And that's just going to sit in the front there again. A beautiful fit. So that's just going to go around like that. Just like so. And there we are. As you notice, no cleanup, no messing about, no pegging, no flash removal, nothing. Just simple building. Designed to go together with ease. So there we go, that's that. Now we've got to add our photo etch. So photo etch sheet comes fairly small, comes with this plastic on both sides. What you can do is rip the plastic off one side. I tend to leave it on one side because it makes for holding the pieces on there. It stops them flying off when you cut the actual bits away. So we've got PE03 and PE09. So this is 9 over here. So I like to use a round blade. So I come up to the edge of the PE and then just roll over it. And then again here, come up to the edge of the PE. Always cut your PE on a hard face. Don't cut it on a soft cutting mat. Otherwise, when you push it down, you tend to push the PE into the soft cutting mat, especially if your blade's a bit blunt. We're going to have this one here. So as you can see, we can easily come in and remove these from here, these little thin tabs. And now because I've left the plastic on the back, they're not all flying around everywhere, and I'm able to get under here. There we go. So we just want those two pieces there. There's nothing else. I'm just going to look over the page quickly. There is no other PE to go on there at all. So we can basically put our PE back in its bag. Okay, and then that's that. And then we'll give these a clean up on the edges. So I'm going to use my, because if there was more there I would use a file, but I'm actually just going to use my sanding stick just to show you how good they are. Just to remove those nibs on there. That's that. That's that. So we're good to go on that one. This one here's got quite a nib on it, so I'm going to get my diamond files out. So these are the Infinity diamond files I reviewed a little while ago, and they are awesome. So we're going to get the fine, not the medium, not the super fine, the fine. And then what I'm going to do is use tweezers to hold this. And then what we can do is just use this diamond file just to file them off, and you can see what a lovely job it makes of that and how quick it is. And don't ever, well, I'm going to do it now, but if you've got a nice fine diamond file you can do it. You should always try and avoid filing across PE unless you've got a fine diamond file, because basically anything soft like a sanding stick or whatever, it'll dig into it and you'll bend it. And as you all know, once you bend PE, it's very difficult to get it back. So there we are. So that's that done. So we can put that file to one side, and then with my sanding stick I'm going to come along and rough up the back. Okay, basically because you can also see these have got a bit of a spring in them. Rough up the back, it gives the super glue something to bite on. The super glue will bite into the plastic, but with the brass it just tends to sit on the surface. So if you sand it like so, it'll give it something to bite on. We can also give it a degrease. Now this part here, as you can see when you look at it like this, it's got a kind of curve to it. So what I'm going to do is take a sanding sponge, put it on the other way up, grab something round and just gently roll it until it's flat. Okay, the other thing you can do is anneal it, but it's just easier just to do this. You see now I've gone too far, now it's bent the other way. We'll just turn it over. And there we are. Nearest damn it, it's straight. Okay. So there we go. So that's that one flattened out. So we'll check our fit first. Check it's going to fit in there. Yes, it does. It fits in there beautifully. So well, it hardly wants to come out. And I'm going to get some super glue and I'm going to put plenty in there because I want it to stay flat. So now we have to be quick. Can't hang around. Just get it in there and get it down as quick as you can. There we go. That's in there. Job done. Okay, so we've got a nice PE grill on there. Now this one we don't have a flat face to glue it to, it's just a ledge. So what I'm going to do is just offer it up and check that it fits. Always check. You should always dry fit everything really, but especially with PE, because once you've got the glue in there you don't want to be messing around with it. So what I'm going to do is put plenty of glue in around the edge. Because I don't want this falling out. And then come along with my bit of PE and just stick it in. Job done. Job's a good one. So I'd imagine this is the oil cooler here on the side and this is the intercooler. much like the Lancaster. I think that has a intercooler and oil cooler in there. Right, there we are. So that's all done, so we can leave that to dry, and then we can look at doing... That was a bit weird, the camera stopped, it said the battery was flat. I'm looking at it now, it's got about a 3/4 charge in it, so I don't know what's going on. There's only about 11 minutes left on the disc though, so... Right, so moving along now, you can see I've got the engine bearers on. As you know, one of them was broken on my kit, so I've actually used them as a jig. We used the bulkhead as a jig to get it back together, so you can see now it all fits in there, and it fits absolutely gorgeously. You know, it just sits there on its own. It's really, really nice. This is a lovely kit, guys, honestly. The engine bearers fit into the engine beautifully, so you could probably get away with gluing them to the bulkhead. I mean, they stay in there on their own. They're not like a snap fit. They're a lovely sliding fit. They'll pull out easily. This is where we were when the battery went. I was just cleaning up the seams. Once the seams are cleaned up, bit of extra thin, get most of it off the brush, and then just run round and just over those little recessed areas there, and that will clean anything out of those seams, and that hides them. So we've got a lovely photo etch grills on there, we've got a grill on the front, and all looking lovely and all sanded down. Now this part here, I'm assuming it's some kind of oil tank that got coined, some kind of oil tank that goes on the side of the engine bearers here. D32, D9, correct, it is assembly, but the parts numbers that are only round, so don't worry about that. Nothing much to worry about. Ejector pin marks on the inside of this one, and a couple of them have got some raised edges, so I'm just coming on with a round number 10 blade and just rubbing over the recesses on the inside. Nothing on there, so that's going to go together lovely. You can see I've got some bits of flash on there. The actual tank has got like a step, you can see on this end, it's thicker. So, and then it's the same on this piece here, so that's going to go in there like that. And then again, we'll just drop some extra thin into there, let it capillary around the joint, and that will hold that together just like so. So I'm not really too worried about the seam, because this goes up on the side of the engine. As you can see here, it goes onto that engine bearer there. Excuse me. And that's going to go into the engine bearer there and go like that. So you're not going to see the back of it anyway. So I'm not exactly sure. Not sure what colour it's going to be. We'll have a look and see. I don't think the Hasegawa kit has engine detail. Does it? Come here. No. No, so it doesn't include that. So we'll have to have a look on something else. I'm assuming this is going to be our MO2 anyway. So in fact, we may as well glue that on, because that's all going to be our MO2, isn't it? So we'll get that glued on there, and then we can, when we come to wash it, it'll all be done together, won't it, at the same time? Go on, go in, there you are. And what I'm going to do is just take that off of there. You can see it's a lovely fit. Take that off of there, and then we can just run some glue, because it's only got those 2 pins, and it doesn't really want to stay there. If you look, it wants to move around, so I'll put some glue on there. That should properly lock it in position then. There we go. And as you can see, these things just drop in like absolutely gorgeous. They are lovely. That oil tank really does not want to stay put. In fact, we've got a bit of a seam line around there, so we just go over the extra thin and get rid of that. There we are. Let's see, that's going to go in there like that. Okay, that fits on there. You can see how well this fits together. And then the intercooler slash oil cooler, if it is a slash oil cooler, is going to go down here. That's going to fit onto there, onto that little pipe there. I doubt you can see what I'm doing. I can hardly see it myself. There we go. And you can see how lovely all this fits together. If you look, I mean, there are so many parts in this assembly, and that intercooler is sitting on those 3 pipes, which are 3, I mean, they're made of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5 different parts. Okay, and then we've got the engine mountings here going into the side of the engine block into this, and bearing in mind one of them was broken and I've had to rejig it, you know, and then this just literally pops on like that. You can see how that fits under there with that little step we put on, how that fits into there. This is a lovely model, guys. Honestly, this goes together like a dream. Well, at this stage, I'm not saying when we try to put it in the cowling it's going to be any different, but that is just absolutely wonderful. And look at all those different parts going together and how well it all fits. So, yeah, lovely. Very, very nice indeed. So, right, I just did it again. Battery, I've just put the battery in the charger and it's showing it's got like more than half power. Anyway, so there we go. I've lost track now because this bloody camera's been... I wonder if I've done the right thing buying this Sony ZV one. I'm not sure if it's the right thing for this kind of work, but I don't know, maybe the iPhone was better. But anyway, so there we go. That's all glued together. That's all fitted together beautifully. We've got 5 minutes of filming left, so I'm not going to really do much more. But there you can see our engine is all together. It is fitted absolutely beautifully. No issues whatsoever, other than a broken part, which you won't have because your parts will be bagged. And a couple of small issues. You've got 2 parts there numbered the wrong way round. You've got 2 parts there numbered the wrong way round, but it's absolutely obvious if you can't tell the difference between those two, then there's something wrong. And then you've got the bulkhead part is not called up, C41, but again, it's such a big part, you'll have no trouble finding out on the sprue. So it's nothing like the 109 where we had the issues with it was the correct cam cut rocker cover for the correct side, but it was actually the wrong gear that goes on the back of it. So when you actually try to put it in, you make it fit the right side, and it. I'll go back and have a look at that. It was an absolute bloody nightmare. But this is a cut above. So turning over the page, the next thing we're going to be doing is fitting all this into our cowling, which I'm not going to do now. I'm going to do that in part 2. What I'm going to do, while I'm off camera, I'm going to get this all painted, because this is about the build, not the painting. So I'll get it painted, get it dry brushed, see how it all looks. I have had a look at these parts here, D45 and D38. As you can see, D45 here is that way round with the hole. There's a hole in there and it's uppermost. And you can see here, this is D45, that way round with the hole uppermost. So that's all good as well. In fact, I'll just lock this off the sprue. Got 3 minutes before the film runs out. Just lock that off the sprue. I just want to see how it fits. Another thing I'm very happy about is the sprue connections. You can see on there, they've got that sprue connection along that thin edge. Come on. That sprue connection along that thin edge there. And basically it hasn't, it's not like it's gone into anything else. So this is 45 and that is with the engine that way up. So that's going to go on there like so. Excuse me. Yeah, so they're a nice tight fit, so they just push in actually. So you could actually glue your exhaust into them and then push them in. Oh no, you won't slide them in then, will you? But there we go. So that fits in there beautifully. So again, this really is a lovely model, guys. Really is lovely. Recommended. So far, this here, other than those silly little mistakes, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. Well, I guess I have to give it a 9.9 out of 10 because of these silly little errors in the instructions. But at the end of the day, you know, new company, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And it is a brand new kit. They may change this before the release of the product. See you all soon, guys. Thanks for watching part 1. I'll see you for part 2. Bye for now.